Welcome to the Johto region, a place shaped by tradition, quiet roots, and a slower sense of time where every Pokémon feels deeply connected to its surroundings. Sudowoodo is a Pokémon built around contradiction, a creature that survives not by blending in naturally, but by imitating something it is not. At first glance, it appears completely still, shaped like a tree frozen in time, arms raised as though mid-branch. This illusion is not accidental or temporary. Sudowoodo relies on stillness and deception as its primary form of defense, choosing patience over movement and misdirection over confrontation. In the Johto region, where forests, paths, and quiet roots intertwine, Sudowoodo feels perfectly placed, a living obstacle that tests observation more than strength. Despite its appearance, Sudowoodo is not a grass-type Pokémon. It is pure rock, dense and rigid beneath its bark-like exterior. Sudowoodo mimics trees because it dislikes water, not because it belongs among plants. Rain weakens it, moisture seeps into its rocky body uncomfortably, and so it chooses environments where dryness and still air dominate. By standing perfectly still and resembling a tree, Sudowoodo avoids rainfall, predators, and unnecessary attention, all through careful imitation rather than aggression. The texture of Sudowoodo's body reinforces this illusion. Its surface appears rough and uneven, resembling bark more than stone. Small details in its limbs and torso suggest knots and branches, creating the impression of age and immobility. Yet when Sudowoodo moves, the illusion breaks instantly. Its steps are heavy, deliberate, and unmistakably solid, revealing the truth beneath the disguise. This contrast between appearance and reality gives Sudowoodo a quietly humorous presence, one that feels intentional rather than accidental. Sudowoodo's stillness is not laziness, it is focus. Remaining motionless for extended periods requires control and awareness, especially in environments where movement is the norm. Sudowoodo chooses when to move, and when it does, it commits fully. This selective motion makes its actions feel meaningful rather than reactive. It does not wander aimlessly or fidget. It waits. In Johto lore, Sudowoodo is often associated with blocked paths and natural barriers. It does not chase travelers or attack without reason. It simply stands where it stands, forcing others to adapt, observe, and respond thoughtfully. This behavior aligns with Johto's broader themes of patience, tradition, and quiet challenge. Sudowoodo is not an enemy to defeat quickly, but a presence to understand. There is something deeply symbolic about a Pokémon that pretends to be a tree to avoid discomfort. Trees are associated with stability, endurance, and rootedness, qualities Sudowoodo mirrors despite lacking true roots. It anchors itself through will rather than biology. Its feet plant firmly into the ground, creating the illusion of permanence even though it can move freely when it chooses. Sudowoodo's arms are raised in a way that resembles branches, but they are also capable of powerful strikes. When it attacks, the same limbs used for imitation become tools of force. This dual purpose reflects Sudowoodo's adaptability. It does not specialize narrowly. It repurposes what it has, switching roles seamlessly when circumstances change. Despite its rocky composition, Sudowoodo does not feel cold or lifeless. Its expressions are subtle but present, its posture expressive despite rigidity. When calm, it stands relaxed, almost casual. When startled, it reacts stiffly, as though unused to sudden motion. These small behavioral details make Sudowoodo feel alive rather than static, even when it remains perfectly still. Sudowoodo's dislike of water adds an interesting layer to its personality. Water is not just inconvenient, It is genuinely distressing. This aversion explains much of its behavior, from where it chooses to stand to how it responds when disturbed. It avoids rivers, rain, and damp environments whenever possible, preferring dry paths and forest edges where it can maintain control over its surroundings. In battle, Sudowoodo relies on physical strength and endurance rather than speed. Its attacks feel heavy and grounded, each movement carrying weight. It does not strike rapidly or repeatedly. Instead, it focuses on timing and impact. This mirrors its overall lifestyle, one built around conservation of energy and decisive action rather than constant motion. Sudowoodo's defensive nature is also reflected in its mental approach. It does not panic easily. When threatened, it stands firm, absorbing pressure rather than evading it. This steadiness makes it feel reliable and composed, a Pokémon that remains centered even when circumstances shift suddenly. There is also an understated humor to Sudowoodo's existence. A rock Pokémon pretending to be a tree is inherently ironic, yet the execution is so committed that it becomes endearing rather than comedic. Sudowoodo does not wink at the joke. It takes its role seriously, which makes the illusion more charming. In the quiet landscapes of Johto, Sudowoodo feels like a natural puzzle rather than a roadblock. It asks those who encounter it to slow down, look closely, and understand rather than rush forward. This aligns perfectly with Johto's slower, more reflective tone, where progress often comes from patience and respect rather than speed. Sudowoodo's movements, when it finally decides to relocate, are surprisingly careful. It does not stomp wildly or rush. Each step is placed deliberately, as though it is still partially pretending to be rooted even while moving. This restrained motion reinforces the idea that Sudowoodo never fully abandons its illusion, even when it no longer needs it. Symbolically, Sudowoodo represents the idea that survival does not always require strength or dominance. Sometimes it requires stillness, observation, and the willingness to adapt creatively. By pretending to be something it is not, Sudowoodo protects itself without harming others, choosing coexistence over conflict whenever possible. There is a calm that comes from imagining a Sudowoodo standing quietly along a forest path, unmoving as the world passes by. Wind moves leaves around it, shadows shift, and time continues. Yet Sudowoodo remains steady. It does not hurry, and it does not need to. Its strength lies in knowing when not to move. Rather than ending with a flourish or sentiment, Sudowoodo's presence settles naturally into stillness. It stands, patient and composed, exactly where it intends to be, waiting without urgency, content in the quiet certainty of remaining exactly as it is. Umbreon carries an atmosphere that feels calm, measured, and quietly deliberate, like nightfall arriving without warning yet never causing alarm. It does not rush, leap, or posture aggressively. Instead, it moves with controlled stillness, its presence defined more by awareness than action. In the Johto region, where time seems to slow beneath moonlit skies and quiet routes stretch between towns, Umbreon feels perfectly at home, a Pokémon shaped by darkness but never consumed by it. Unlike many dark-type Pokémon that lean into chaos or menace, Umbreon represents restraint. Its sleek, black fur absorbs light rather than reflecting it, allowing it to blend seamlessly into shadowed environments. This is not camouflage born from fear, but from comfort. Umbreon does not hide because it must. It hides because it understands the value of patience and subtlety. Darkness is not a weapon to it, but a familiar space where clarity replaces noise. The glowing rings along Umbreon's body are its most striking feature. These markings emit a soft, steady light, most visible at night. They do not flash or pulse erratically. Instead, they remain constant, almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat made visible. This glow serves as both a signal and a balance, a reminder that Umbreon exists between light and dark rather than fully within either. Even in total darkness, Umbreon never disappears completely. Umbreon's evolution is deeply tied to trust and time. It does not evolve through force or exposure to raw energy, but through connection and consistency. This origin gives Umbreon a sense of emotional depth that carries into its behavior. It feels loyal without being dependent, protective without being possessive. Umbreon chooses its bonds carefully and maintains them quietly, without dramatic displays. The eyes of Umbreon are sharp and attentive, adapted for low-light environments, yet there is no restlessness in its gaze. It does not dart its head constantly or scan frantically. Umbreon watches with calm focus, processing information slowly and thoroughly before reacting. This measured awareness gives it a composed presence, as though nothing truly catches it off guard. Umbreon's body is built for endurance rather than speed. Its movements are smooth and efficient, conserving energy at all times. When it walks, it places its paws carefully, minimizing sound. When it runs, it does so low to the ground, controlled and silent. Umbreon does not sprint unless absolutely necessary. It prefers to remain prepared rather than exhausted. There is a strong sense of self-control associated with Umbreon. It does not act impulsively, even when threatened. Instead, it holds its ground, allowing situations to unfold before committing to a response. This discipline sets Umbreon apart from many other Dark-type Pokémon, which often embody unpredictability. Umbreon's darkness is stable, not volatile. In battle, Umbreon excels through resilience and patience. It absorbs pressure, wears opponents down, and outlasts rather than overwhelms. Its strength lies not in striking first, but in remaining present long after others have faltered. This approach reflects its broader philosophy, one rooted in endurance and emotional steadiness rather than raw power. Umbreon's defensive nature extends beyond combat. It is naturally protective of those it trusts, positioning itself nearby without crowding. It does not hover anxiously or interfere unnecessarily. Instead, it watches quietly, ready to act if needed, but content to remain still otherwise. This behavior makes Umbreon feel reassuring, like a silent presence that provides comfort simply by being there. The nighttime environments Umbreon prefers are not chaotic or dangerous. They are calm, open spaces where sound carries softly and movement slows. Moonlit paths, quiet fields, and empty streets feel more welcoming than ominous. Umbreon fits into these settings seamlessly, becoming part of the atmosphere rather than standing apart from it. There is an emotional maturity to Umbreon that feels rare. It does not seek attention or validation. It does not need constant reassurance. Its confidence comes from internal balance rather than external reaction. This emotional independence makes Umbreon feel grounded and reliable, especially in moments where calm is needed most. Umbreon's dark typing is often misunderstood as representing negativity or fear, but in Umbreon's case, it represents acceptance of what cannot always be seen. Darkness becomes a space for clarity, introspection, and rest rather than threat. Umbreon moves through this space comfortably, never rushing to fill silence with noise or action. The glowing rings on Umbreon's body also serve a symbolic purpose. Circles represent continuity and balance, with no beginning and no end. These rings reinforce Umbreon's identity as a Pokémon of steadiness, one that remains consistent regardless of circumstance. Whether in motion or stillness, Umbreon feels unchanged. Umbreon's interactions with others are subtle. It does not vocalize frequently or make exaggerated gestures. Communication comes through posture, proximity, and presence. A slight shift in stance, a quiet step closer, or a steady gaze conveys more than sound ever could. This quiet communication style aligns perfectly with its overall demeanor. In Johto, where tradition and history shape much of the region's tone, Umbreon feels like a natural extension of the land. It embodies patience learned over time, strength earned through consistency, and trust built slowly. It does not represent the thrill of discovery, but the comfort of familiarity. Umbreon does not seek the spotlight, yet it leaves a lasting impression. Its calm presence lingers, remembered not for dramatic moments, but for reliability. It is the kind of Pokémon that remains steady when everything else feels uncertain, offering balance without demanding attention. Rather than ending in flourish or sentiment, Umbreon's presence settles quietly. It remains alert, composed, and grounded, standing comfortably within the stillness of night, not waiting for change, but fully content within the calm it already understands. Espeon carries a presence that feels clear, focused, and quietly alert, like the air just before sunrise when the world has not fully awakened yet. It does not linger in shadows or rely on concealment. Instead, it exists comfortably in open spaces, where light and awareness sharpen perception rather than dull it. Everything about Espeon suggests clarity of mind and precision of thought, a Pokémon that understands its surroundings deeply and responds with calm confidence rather than hesitation. Espeon's body is sleek and balanced, built for agility without excess. Its limbs are slender, its posture upright, and its movements smooth and intentional. Nothing about Espeon feels rushed or impulsive. When it moves, it does so with purpose, conserving energy and maintaining awareness at all times. Watching Espeon walk or turn gives the impression of a Pokémon constantly aligned with its own center, never off balance, never uncertain. The gem embedded in Espeon's forehead is the focal point of its design and the clearest symbol of its psychic ability. This gem does not glow wildly or pulse erratically. Instead, it shines steadily when Espeon concentrates, reflecting focused mental energy rather than raw power. The gem feels less like a weapon and more like a lens, a way for Espeon to sharpen thought and perception rather than overwhelm the world around it. Espeon's psychic abilities are rooted in foresight and understanding. It is often described as being able to read subtle changes in air, light, and movement to predict what will happen moments before it occurs. This ability does not make Espeon anxious or tense. Instead, it makes it calm. Knowing what is coming allows Espeon to act with certainty, removing the need for rushed decisions or panic. There is a strong sense of trust associated with Espeon. Its evolution is tied to care, patience, and a deep bond rather than force or exposure to raw energy. This origin shapes its behavior. Espeon does not attach itself recklessly or indiscriminately. When it chooses companionship, it does so fully, maintaining loyalty through consistency rather than dependence. Espeon's eyes are sharp and expressive, reflecting constant awareness without aggression. They do not glare or narrow in suspicion. Instead, they remain open and attentive, taking in detail calmly. Espeon observes the world as something to understand rather than something to challenge. This mindset makes its presence feel reassuring, like a guide rather than a guard. In Johto, where tradition, balance, and reflection are central themes, Espeon fits naturally. It embodies the idea that strength comes from understanding rather than force. While others may rely on instinct or emotion, Espeon relies on clarity and foresight. This makes it feel composed even in uncertain situations. Espeon's movements during battle are efficient and controlled. It does not waste energy on unnecessary motion or excessive displays. Each action feels calculated, chosen for effectiveness rather than impact. This precision reinforces its identity as a Pokémon that values accuracy and timing over raw intensity. Despite its psychic power, Espeon does not feel detached or cold. There is warmth in its behavior, expressed through attentiveness rather than affection. It stays close without crowding, watches without hovering, and responds without overreacting. This balance makes Espeon feel emotionally intelligent as well as mentally sharp. Espeon prefers environments filled with light and space. Open plains, quiet towns, and sunlit paths suit it better than confined or chaotic spaces. These settings allow its awareness to extend outward freely, reinforcing its connection to clarity and perception. Espeon does not thrive in clutter. It prefers simplicity and openness. There is a natural elegance to Espeon's stillness. When it rests, it does not slump or sprawl. It sits upright, body relaxed but posture intact, as though rest itself is something to be done with intention. This composed resting state reinforces the idea that Espeon never fully disengages from awareness, even when calm. Espeon's psychic typing often symbolizes intellect, but in Espeon's case, it also symbolizes intuition. Its understanding does not come solely from analysis, but from alignment with its surroundings. It senses shifts before they occur, not through calculation alone, but through harmony with the world around it. Symbolically, Espeon represents clarity after uncertainty. It is the light that arrives quietly, revealing paths rather than forcing direction. It does not demand attention or control outcomes. It simply makes understanding possible, allowing others to choose their own way forward. Espeon's relationship with time feels steady. It does not rush toward the future or cling to the past. Its foresight exists to create calm in the present rather than anxiety about what lies ahead. This temporal balance makes it especially grounding, a Pokémon that lives comfortably in the moment even while seeing beyond it. There is also a sense of self-assurance in Espeon that feels earned rather than asserted. It does not prove itself constantly. It does not need to. Its confidence comes from consistency, from knowing its role and fulfilling it quietly. Espeon's presence tends to quiet environments rather than energize them. Movement slows slightly, attention sharpens, and unnecessary noise fades. This effect is subtle but noticeable, reinforcing Espeon's identity as a Pokémon that brings focus rather than excitement. Rather than concluding with sentiment or flourish, Espeon's presence settles naturally into balance. It remains alert, composed, and aware, standing comfortably within calm and light, not waiting for action, but perfectly content in clarity and stillness as it is. Slowking carries an air of quiet wisdom that feels unhurried and deeply settled, as though it has already learned that most things do not require immediate answers. It does not move quickly or speak impulsively. Instead, it pauses, considers, and responds only when it feels appropriate. This measured pace defines Slowking more than intelligence alone, making it feel thoughtful rather than analytical, reflective rather than reactive. The most distinctive feature of Slowking is the shelter clamped onto its head, a relationship that transforms both form and mind. This connection is not portrayed as violent or uncomfortable. It feels symbiotic, almost ceremonial, as though the two have reached a shared understanding. The shelter's presence amplifies Slowking's cognitive abilities, granting it insight, awareness, and a calm clarity that separates it from both Slowpoke and many other Psychic-type Pokémon. Slowking's posture reinforces its composed nature, It stands upright with relaxed shoulders, arms often at ease, and a gaze that never feels rushed. There is no tension in its stance. Even when addressing something complex or unexpected, Slowking remains physically calm, as though its body and mind are perfectly aligned. This physical stillness makes its intelligence feel grounded rather than abstract. Unlike Pokemon that demonstrate intelligence through constant activity or calculation, Slowking's wisdom is expressed through restraint. It does not interrupt. It does not over-explain. It listens carefully and responds succinctly. This selective communication gives its words weight, suggesting that thought has already occurred long before speech begins. Slowking's eyes are alert but gentle, reflecting curiosity without urgency. They do not dart around or narrow suspiciously. Instead, they rest comfortably on whatever they observe, taking in detail over time. This unbroken focus makes Slowking feel present in every interaction, not distracted by possibilities elsewhere. In Johto, where ancient traditions and slow-moving histories shape the region's atmosphere, Slowking feels perfectly placed. It embodies the idea that knowledge accumulates naturally through observation rather than pursuit. Slowking does not chase answers. It allows them to arrive. There is a quiet humor to Slowking's intelligence as well. It is aware of how much it knows, yet never displays arrogance. It understands complexity, but does not burden others with it unnecessarily. This humility makes Slowking approachable, like a teacher who values understanding over display. Slowking's movements are deliberate and minimal. When it walks, each step is careful but unforced. When it gestures, the motion is small and precise. Nothing is exaggerated. This economy of movement reinforces the idea that Slowking wastes neither energy nor thought. In battle, Slowking relies on foresight, endurance, and timing rather than aggression. It absorbs pressure calmly, responding only when conditions align. Its approach reflects patience rather than dominance, making conflict feel secondary to understanding. The psychic aspect of Slowking's abilities is inward-focused. Rather than projecting power outward dramatically, it processes information internally, refining perception and awareness. This inward orientation makes Slowking feel introspective, as though much of its strength exists quietly beneath the surface. Slowking's connection to water adds another layer of calm to its presence. Water environments suit its pace, allowing it to move slowly without resistance. It neither rushes currents nor fights them, existing comfortably alongside natural flow. Symbolically, Slowking represents the value of patience in understanding. It suggests that intelligence does not need speed to be effective, and that clarity often emerges when urgency is removed. This philosophy feels especially fitting within a sleep-focused narrative, where stillness enhances awareness rather than dulling it. There is a sense of emotional balance to Slowking that feels rare. It does not react strongly to praise or criticism. Its mood remains steady, guided by understanding rather than feeling. This emotional consistency gives it a reassuring presence, like something stable within uncertainty. Slowking does not seek leadership, yet it naturally becomes a point of guidance. Others look to it not because it demands attention, but because its calm insight stands out without effort. This passive authority feels earned rather than imposed. When Slowking rests, it does so without collapsing or disengaging. Its posture remains composed, eyes sometimes closed, mind still active in a quiet way. Rest does not mean absence of thought, but a slower, deeper processing that continues without strain. There is no urgency in Slowking's existence. Time passes, questions arise, and answers come when they are ready. This acceptance of time's pace gives Slowking a deeply calming presence, one that encourages patience rather than productivity. Rather than ending in sentiment or flourish, Slowking's presence simply remains steady. It stands calmly within its understanding, neither seeking more nor lacking anything, content in the quiet rhythm of thought and awareness as time continues on unhurriedly around it. Dunsparce is a Pokemon defined by quiet persistence, one that exists without urgency, spectacle, or demand for attention. At first glance, it appears simple and unremarkable. Its body low to the ground, its wings small, its expression neutral. Yet the longer one observes Dunsparce, the clearer it becomes that this simplicity is not emptiness, but calm. Dunsparce does not rush to prove itself or compete for notice. It exists steadily, content to remain exactly where it is. Its body is long and rounded, shaped more for comfort and burrowing than for speed or display. The drill-like tail is its most functional feature, allowing Dunsparce to carve tunnels through earth and stone with surprising ease. This is not a Pokemon built for the open sky or dramatic movement. It prefers enclosed spaces, quiet underground paths, and the safety of darkness where sound is softened and motion is minimal. These environments suit Dunsparce's unhurried nature perfectly. Dunsparce's small wings are often misunderstood. They are not designed for true flight, and Dunsparce does not attempt to soar or glide for long distances. Instead, these wings serve a subtle purpose, allowing it to hover briefly or stabilize itself during movement. This limited function reflects Dunsparce's overall design philosophy. It does not overextend. It uses exactly what it needs, nothing more. There is a notable lack of tension in Dunsparce's posture. It does not brace itself defensively or stand alert and rigid. Its body remains relaxed, movements slow and deliberate. Even when aware of its surroundings, Dunsparce does not appear anxious. It trusts its ability to retreat underground if necessary, relying on preparation rather than reaction. Dunsparce's eyes are wide and calm, reflecting curiosity without fear. They do not dart around nervously or narrow in suspicion. Instead, they observe quietly, taking in surroundings at a steady pace. This gentle awareness gives Dunsparce an almost meditative presence, as though it is always present in the moment rather than anticipating danger. In the Johto region, Dunsparce fits naturally into caves, tunnels, and quiet rural areas. These locations are often overlooked, passed through rather than lingered in, much like Dunsparce itself. Yet within these spaces, Dunsparce thrives. It creates networks of tunnels that remain stable over time, shaping its environment slowly rather than dramatically. Dunsparce's movement through the ground is smooth and efficient. It does not dig frantically or collapse tunnels behind it. Each passage is carefully formed, allowing it to move freely without disturbing the surrounding earth. This careful construction reflects patience rather than urgency, reinforcing the idea that Dunsparce values long-term comfort over short-term speed. In battle, Dunsparce is not aggressive, but it is persistent. It withstands pressure, adapts slowly, and continues forward without panic. Its strength lies not in overwhelming force, but in durability and composure. Dunsparce does not try to end conflict quickly. It simply remains present until the situation resolves. There is a subtle confidence in Dunsparce's existence. It does not see itself as weak or incomplete. It simply exists as it is, without comparing itself to others. This lack of comparison gives it emotional stability. Dunsparce does not strive to become something else. It is content within its role. Dunsparce's sound is soft and minimal, rarely drawing attention. When it vocalizes, it does so gently, blending into ambient noise rather than cutting through it. This restraint aligns with its overall demeanor, one that avoids disruption whenever possible. Symbolically, Dunsparce represents comfort in constancy. It shows that value can exist without visibility, that presence does not need to be dramatic to be meaningful. In a world often driven by growth and transformation, Dunsparce remains steady, unchanged, and calm. There is something reassuring about imagining a Dunsparce resting within its tunnel, the earth surrounding it still and quiet. No movement is required, no vigilance demanded. It simply remains, breathing slowly, grounded and undisturbed, content in the simplicity of existing without expectation. Gligar moves through the world with a balance of alertness and restraint, a Pokémon that feels constantly aware without ever appearing tense. Its body is lightweight, yet sturdy, designed for gliding rather than sustained flight, and its posture reflects this purpose clearly. Gligar does not rush forward or retreat suddenly. Instead, it positions itself carefully, always aware of height, distance, and terrain. This sense of spatial understanding defines much of Gligar's behavior, making it feel calculated rather than impulsive. The most defining feature of Gligar is its ability to glide silently through the air. Using its wide, membranous wings, it can catch air currents and descend smoothly from high places with minimal effort. This movement is not dramatic or fast. It is controlled and quiet, like a leaf drifting downward rather than falling. Gligar does not flap constantly or strain to stay airborne. It trusts gravity and air to do most of the work, conserving energy through efficiency. Gligar's body structure reflects this lifestyle perfectly. Its limbs are compact and functional, claws curved for gripping rock faces and tree bark. These claws are not decorative. They are essential tools that allow Gligar to cling securely to surfaces while resting or preparing to glide. This ability to perch almost anywhere gives Gligar flexibility without restlessness. It does not need to keep moving to feel safe. There is a calm vigilance in Gligar's eyes. They remain open and attentive, scanning surroundings slowly rather than darting anxiously. Gligar does not appear fearful or aggressive by default. Instead, it watches and waits, assessing before acting. This observational approach makes Gligar feel thoughtful, as though it prefers understanding over reaction. Gligar is most comfortable in elevated environments. Cliffs, canyons, rocky paths, and mountain ledges suit it well. These locations offer open air for gliding and solid surfaces for resting. In such environments, Gligar feels perfectly adapted, neither exposed nor confined. Height provides perspective rather than danger. Despite its ground and flying typing, Gligar does not feel conflicted between elements. It transitions smoothly between air and surface, moving naturally from gliding to clinging without hesitation. This adaptability gives it a composed presence, as though it never needs to choose between movement and stillness. Both come easily. Gligar's tail is another subtle but important feature. It curves slightly upward, balanced and flexible, aiding in stability during glides and landings. Rather than being used aggressively, the tail functions as a counterbalance, reinforcing Gligar's overall emphasis on control and precision. Everything about its body supports equilibrium. In battle, Gligar favors positioning over power. It avoids direct confrontation when possible, using height and movement to its advantage. Its attacks are deliberate and well-timed rather than overwhelming. This approach mirrors its natural behavior, reinforcing the idea that Gligar values awareness and preparation more than raw force. There is an understated confidence in Gligar's demeanor. It does not boast or display dominance. It simply knows what it is capable of and acts accordingly. This self-assurance makes Gligar feel calm and reliable rather than aggressive or unpredictable. Gligar's interactions with others tend to be cautious but not unfriendly. It maintains space, observing before engaging. When it does interact, it does so deliberately, choosing moments that feel appropriate rather than forced. This selective engagement reinforces its measured personality. The environments Gligar inhabits often feel quiet and expansive. Wind moves steadily, light shifts slowly, and sound carries far. These settings amplify Gligar's calm presence, making it feel like part of the landscape rather than a disruption within it. It belongs in spaces where patience matters. Symbolically, Gligar represents control through awareness. It shows that movement does not need speed to be effective, and that height does not require dominance. By understanding its environment deeply, Gligar moves through it smoothly, never rushed and never lost. Gligar's presence does not demand attention, yet it leaves a strong impression. Its quiet glides, careful landings, and steady watchfulness create a sense of calm competence. It does not seek to impress. It simply exists with purpose and clarity. Rather than concluding with sentiment or drama, Gligar's presence settles naturally into stillness. It clings securely to a high ledge, wings folded, eyes open and aware, perfectly balanced between motion and rest, content in the quiet understanding of its surroundings. Scizor carries a presence that feels focused, disciplined, and quietly intense, like a tool that has been refined to its exact purpose and no further. Nothing about Scizor is excessive or decorative. Every part of its body exists for a reason, shaped by efficiency rather than display. In the Johto region, where tradition and refinement are deeply valued, Scizor feels like a natural evolution of restraint and control, a Pokémon that has traded raw speed for precision and stability. The most defining feature of Scizor is its steel body, smooth and polished, yet clearly functional rather than ornamental. Its surface reflects light softly, never glaring or flashy. This steel exterior is not meant to intimidate through appearance alone. It serves as both protection and structure, allowing Scizor to move with confidence while maintaining balance. Unlike bulkier steel-type Pokémon, Scizor never feels weighed down by its armor. Instead, it feels streamlined, as though the metal is an extension of its muscles rather than a shell layered on top. Scizor's claws are perhaps its most recognizable trait. Large, powerful, and perfectly shaped for gripping and striking, they appear heavy at first glance, yet Scizor wields them with surprising grace. These claws do not swing wildly or snap recklessly. Each movement is controlled, deliberate, and precise. Scizor does not rely on repeated strikes. One clean motion is enough. This economy of action reinforces its identity as a Pokémon that values accuracy over excess. Despite its intimidating appearance, Scizor is remarkably calm. It does not pace, posture, or seek confrontation unnecessarily. When standing still, it appears composed, wings folded neatly, claws held close rather than extended. There is no tension in its posture. It does not anticipate conflict. It simply remains ready should action become necessary. Scizor's wings, though small, serve an important role. They allow short bursts of movement and rapid repositioning rather than sustained flight. Scizor does not soar through the sky. It shifts, darts, and adjusts its position quickly and efficiently. These brief movements feel intentional, like steps in a carefully planned sequence rather than spontaneous reactions. The transition from Scyther to Scizor represents a philosophical shift rather than a simple increase in power. Where Scyther relies on speed and agility, Scizor embraces control and endurance. This change does not feel like a loss. It feels like refinement. Scizor trades excess motion for stability, becoming something calmer and more deliberate without sacrificing effectiveness. Scizor's movements on the ground are steady and balanced. Each step is placed carefully, claws never dragging or striking the earth unnecessarily. This controlled movement gives Scizor a grounded presence, making it feel anchored rather than restless. It does not rush toward destinations. It arrives when it arrives, fully prepared. In battle, Scizor's strength lies in timing. It waits for openings rather than forcing them. This patience makes its actions feel confident rather than reactive. Scizor does not overcommit. It strikes when conditions are right and withdraws just as cleanly, maintaining balance throughout the exchange. There is a strong sense of discipline in Scizor's behavior. It does not act on impulse or emotion. Its responses are measured as though guided by an internal code rather than instinct alone. This discipline makes Scizor feel composed even in high-pressure situations, reinforcing its identity as a Pokémon shaped by refinement. Scizor's eyes are sharp and focused, yet never frantic. They track movement calmly, assessing rather than reacting. This steady gaze suggests constant awareness without anxiety. Scizor does not feel threatened easily, nor does it underestimate its surroundings. It simply observes, processes, and responds when needed. In Johto's forests and industrial areas, Scizor feels perfectly adapted. It blends strength with restraint, fitting into environments shaped by both nature and human craftsmanship. This balance mirrors Johto's broader themes, where tradition and progress exist side by side rather than in conflict. Scizor's steel typing also symbolizes durability and permanence. Steel does not change quickly. It holds shape, resists erosion, and maintains form under pressure. Scizor embodies these qualities fully. It does not bend to sudden changes or external stress. It remains consistent, reliable, and stable. There is an understated elegance to Scizor's stillness. When resting, it does not sprawl or collapse. It remains upright, wings tucked, claws relaxed but ready. This posture feels ceremonial rather than defensive, reinforcing the idea that Scizor's readiness is a constant state rather than a reaction. Scizor's interactions with others are minimal but intentional. It does not crowd or dominate space. It maintains distance, observing quietly. When it does engage, the interaction feels deliberate rather than casual. This selectivity reinforces its composed personality. Symbolically, Scizor represents mastery through refinement. It shows that growth does not always mean becoming larger or faster. Sometimes it means becoming calmer, more precise, and more controlled. Scizor's strength comes from knowing exactly how much force is needed and never more. There is no urgency in Scizor's presence. Time does not pressure it. It moves at its own pace, guided by intention rather than reaction. This calm authority makes it feel dependable, like something that will remain steady regardless of circumstance. Rather than ending in flourish or sentiment, Scizor's presence settles naturally into quiet readiness. It stands balanced and composed, claws still, wings folded, awareness steady, content in the discipline and control that define it, remaining exactly where it needs to be without hurry or excess. Shuckle exists in a state of near-perfect stillness, a Pokémon whose strength is defined not by motion, but by patience and endurance. At first glance, it appears almost inactive, tucked safely within its massive shell, limbs barely visible, body compact and unmoving. Yet this stillness is not emptiness. It is deliberate restraint. Shuckle does not waste energy, does not rush, and does not respond unless it truly must. In the Johto region, where quiet roots and hidden corners reward observation. Shuckle feels like a lesson in waiting rather than acting. The shell that defines Shuckle is one of the most remarkable defensive structures in the Pokemon world. Thick, rounded, and riddled with small openings, it serves as both protection and shelter. Shuckle does not treat its shell as armor alone, but as a complete environment. It withdraws into it fully, sealing itself away from harm and distraction. This behavior is not fear-driven. It is preference. Shuckle chooses safety and stability over confrontation every time. Despite its small size, Shuckle possesses an incredible capacity for endurance. Its defensive strength is legendary, allowing it to withstand pressure that would overwhelm far larger Pokemon. Yet Shuckle never displays this strength aggressively. It does not posture or threaten. Its resilience is quiet, revealed only when tested. This makes Shuckle feel deeply composed, like something that does not need to announce its capability. Shuckle's limbs are thin and flexible, extending cautiously from its shell when it chooses to interact with the world. These limbs are not built for speed or force. They are built for careful movement and gentle reach. When Shuckle moves, it does so slowly, placing each limb deliberately, never rushing to cover distance. This measured pace reinforces the idea that Shuckle exists comfortably outside urgency. One of Shuckle's most fascinating behaviors is its relationship with berries. It collects them and stores them inside its shell, where they slowly ferment over time. This process transforms simple fruit into something richer and more complex, guided entirely by patience. Shuckle does not hurry this process. It allows time to do the work. This behavior mirrors Shuckle's broader philosophy, one that values gradual change over immediate results. The act of fermentation inside Shuckle's shell turns the shell itself into a living container, a space where transformation occurs quietly and invisibly. This detail adds depth to Shuckle's identity. It is not just defensive, it is nurturing. Within its shell, processes unfold slowly, undisturbed by the outside world. This makes Shuckle feel less like a passive object and more like a guardian of time itself. Shuckle's eyes are small and calm, often barely visible when it is fully withdrawn. When they do appear, they do not convey alarm or aggression. Instead, they reflect awareness without urgency. Shuckle watches the world at its own pace, taking in changes slowly and without reaction. This gentle observation gives it a peaceful presence, one that feels grounded rather than disengaged. In Johto's caves, forests, and rocky paths, Shuckle fits naturally into the environment. It does not alter the landscape or disrupt movement. It becomes part of the scenery, easily overlooked by those who rush past. Yet for those who notice it, Shuckle becomes memorable, a reminder that not everything valuable demands attention immediately. Shuckle's movement through its environment is minimal but purposeful. It rarely travels far, preferring to remain in familiar areas where it feels secure. This attachment to place reinforces its stability. Shuckle does not seek novelty or exploration. It finds comfort in consistency, in knowing exactly where it is and what surrounds it. In battle, Shuckle's approach remains unchanged. It does not attack aggressively or chase advantage. It absorbs, endures, and waits. This patience often outlasts opponents who expect immediate outcomes. Shuckle's strength lies not in defeating others quickly, but in remaining present long after others have exhausted themselves. There is something almost meditative about Shuckle's existence. Its stillness invites calm, its patience encourages reflection. It does not react to noise or chaos unless absolutely necessary. This selective engagement makes Shuckle feel emotionally steady, unaffected by external pressure. Shuckle's design emphasizes containment rather than expression. Its shell conceals most of its body, limiting visibility and movement. This concealment is not restrictive, it is protective. Shuckle chooses inward focus over outward display, creating a sense of self-sufficiency that feels deeply reassuring. Symbolically, Shuckle represents strength through endurance and care. It shows that resilience does not always require action, and that sometimes the most powerful response is to remain unchanged. By holding firm, Shuckle allows time to resolve what force cannot. There is also a subtle warmth to Shuckle's behavior, the way it tends to berries, the way it retreats calmly rather than fleeing, suggests a Pokémon that values preservation over domination. It protects not only itself, but what it carries within. Shuckle does not evolve, and this fact feels intentional rather than limiting. It does not need to become something else to be complete. Its design, behavior, and role are already perfectly aligned. This completeness gives Shuckle a sense of quiet confidence, one that does not depend on progression or growth. When Shuckle rests, it does so completely. It withdraws into its shell, limbs tucked, eyes hidden, awareness turned inward. This rest is deep and undisturbed, unaffected by passing movement or sound. Shuckle does not sleep lightly. It rests fully, trusting its shell to handle whatever occurs outside. The world around Shuckle may change slowly over time, seasons shifting, paths worn down by travelers, yet Shuckle remains. Its presence becomes a constant, a small anchor of stability in a landscape shaped by motion. This permanence gives it a calming weight, something reliable in an ever-moving world. Rather than concluding with emotion or flourish, Shuckle's presence simply continues. It remains still, protected, and patient, holding its place quietly, without urgency, content in endurance, and unbothered by time, exactly as it was meant to be. Heracross carries a presence that feels steady, earnest, and quietly powerful, like strength that has no interest in showing off. Its posture is upright and balanced, horn held forward not as a threat, but as a natural extension of its form. There is nothing frantic or aggressive in the way Heracross moves. Instead, it approaches the world with a calm confidence, relying on physical capability paired with restraint rather than intimidation. The horn that defines Heracross is its most recognizable feature, yet it is also one of its most misunderstood. While it is undeniably powerful, capable of lifting and throwing objects many times Heracross's own weight, it is not used recklessly. The horn functions as both a tool and a symbol of balance. Heracross uses it to push, carry, and hold just as often as it uses it in battle. This versatility reflects a Pokémon that values control over domination. Heracross's body is compact and muscular, built for sustained effort rather than explosive bursts. Its limbs are thick and strong, capable of maintaining force over long periods without fatigue. This endurance-based strength gives Heracross a grounded presence. It does not rely on speed or surprise. It relies on consistency, on the ability to keep going when others begin to slow. In Johto's forests, Heracross is often associated with trees that produce sweet sap. These quiet woodland environments suit it well, offering both nourishment and space. Heracross does not strip resources aggressively or damage its surroundings. It feeds patiently, sharing space with others rather than driving them away. This cooperative behavior reinforces its calm, non-confrontational nature. There is a notable gentleness in Heracross's demeanor when it is not engaged in battle. Its movements are careful, almost considerate, as though it is aware of its own strength and chooses to restrain it. This self-awareness makes Heracross feel trustworthy, like a Pokémon that understands responsibility alongside power. Heracross's eyes are focused and sincere, reflecting determination without hostility. It does not glare or posture unnecessarily. Instead, it watches quietly, ready to respond if needed, but content to remain still otherwise. This steady gaze gives Heracross an honest presence, one that feels reliable rather than unpredictable. When Heracross moves through its environment, it does so deliberately. Each step is planted firmly, maintaining balance and stability. There is no wasted motion, no unnecessary effort. This efficiency mirrors its broader philosophy, one built around using exactly as much strength as required, and no more. In battle, Heracross's approach is straightforward and disciplined. It does not rely on tricks or distractions. It meets challenges directly, applying force carefully and decisively. This honesty in combat makes Heracross feel composed rather than aggressive, a Pokémon that values resolution over conflict. Despite its fighting type association, Heracross does not feel combative by nature. Its fighting spirit is rooted in perseverance and fairness rather than anger. It does not seek to overpower for the sake of dominance. It seeks to endure and succeed through effort and balance. Heracross's bug typing adds an interesting contrast to its strength. Bugs are often associated with fragility, yet Heracross defies this expectation completely. It embodies resilience without losing humility, strength without losing gentleness. This contrast gives it depth, making it feel grounded rather than extreme. There is also a sense of routine in Heracross's life. It follows familiar paths, returns to known feeding areas, and maintains consistent behavior over time. This predictability makes its presence comforting. Heracross does not introduce chaos into its surroundings. It reinforces stability. Symbolically, Heracross represents strength guided by responsibility. It shows that power becomes meaningful when paired with restraint, and that true capability does not require constant proof. Heracross's confidence comes from knowing its limits and respecting them. Heracross does not evolve further, and like Shuckle, this feels intentional. It has reached a form that suits its role perfectly. There is no need for escalation or transformation. It already embodies balance between effort and calm. When Heracross rests, it does so standing or leaning gently against a tree, body relaxed but upright. Its breathing is slow and even, posture stable. It does not collapse into rest. It simply pauses, maintaining presence without strain. In the quiet of Johto's forests, imagining a Heracross standing calmly among tall trees feels grounding. Light filters softly through leaves, the air remains still, and nothing demands urgency. Heracross remains where it is, strong without tension, steady without motion, content in the balance it has already achieved. Sneasel carries a presence that feels alert, clever, and quietly calculating, like a shadow that moves only when it has already decided where it will land. Unlike many Pokémon that project power through size or force, Sneasel relies on awareness and timing. Its posture is low and balanced, weight distributed carefully, as though it is always ready to move, yet never in a hurry. There is a sharpness to Sneasel's stillness, an understanding that action is most effective when chosen rather than rushed. The body of Sneasel is lean and agile, built for speed without excess. Its limbs are long and flexible, allowing quick shifts in direction and precise movement. Nothing about Sneasel feels heavy or grounded. Even when standing still, it appears light, as though it could vanish in an instant if needed. This physical design reinforces its identity as a Pokémon that values control over confrontation. Sneasel's claws are among its most defining features. Long, curved, and razor sharp, They are designed for slicing rather than blunt force. Yet Sneasel does not swing them wildly. Each movement is deliberate, efficient, and restrained. The claws feel less like weapons of aggression and more like tools used with careful intent. This restraint gives Sneasel a composed presence. Despite its dangerous capability, the feather-like crest on Sneasel's head adds to its distinctive silhouette, serving as both balance and expression. It shifts subtly with movement, reinforcing Sneasel's constant awareness of its own motion. This detail gives Sneasel an expressive quality without relying on exaggerated gestures. Small changes in posture convey intent clearly and quietly. Sneasel's eyes are sharp and observant, reflecting intelligence rather than hostility. They do not widen in fear or narrow in anger. Instead, they remain focused, tracking movement with calm precision. Sneasel watches first and acts later, preferring understanding over impulse. This patience makes its actions feel intentional rather than reactive. In Johto's colder regions and mountainous paths, Sneasel feels perfectly adapted. Snow, ice, and low temperatures do not slow it down. Instead, these environments sharpen its awareness, reducing noise and making movement more deliberate. Sneasel does not struggle against the cold. It moves comfortably within it, using the environment to its advantage rather than fighting it. Sneasel's dark typing reflects its preference for subtlety rather than malice. Darkness, in this context, represents concealment, strategy, and selective action. Sneasel does not rely on fear or intimidation. It relies on positioning and awareness, choosing when to reveal itself and when to remain unseen. Despite its sharp features and alert posture, Sneasel does not feel aggressive by nature. It does not attack without reason or chase conflict unnecessarily. Its actions are purposeful, motivated by necessity rather than impulse. This discipline gives Sneasel a surprisingly calm presence, even when it remains ready to move. In battle, Sneasel excels at speed and precision. It strikes quickly and withdraws just as fast, never lingering longer than needed. This approach mirrors its natural behavior, reinforcing the idea that efficiency matters more than force. Sneasel does not seek prolonged engagement. It resolves situations cleanly and moves on. There is also a sense of intelligence in how Sneasel navigates its environment. It chooses paths carefully, avoids unnecessary exposure, and uses terrain to maintain advantage. This environmental awareness makes it feel thoughtful rather than reckless. A Pokémon that understands risk and manages it calmly. Sneasel's movements through snow and ice are especially fluid. It does not slip or struggle. Instead, it adjusts its footing naturally, maintaining balance without visible effort. Watching Sneasel move in such conditions feels smooth and controlled, like something perfectly adapted to its surroundings. Symbolically, Sneasel represents clarity through awareness. It shows that speed does not need to be chaotic, and that sharpness does not require aggression. By remaining attentive and selective, Sneasel moves through the world with confidence and composure. There is a quiet independence to Sneasel's behavior. It does not rely heavily on groups or constant interaction. It prefers autonomy, making its own decisions and following its own path. This independence does not feel isolating. It feels intentional, reinforcing Sneasel's self-sufficiency. When Sneasel rests, it does so lightly. It does not fully relax its posture, maintaining awareness even in stillness. Its body remains balanced, ready to move if needed, yet not tense. This balance between rest and readiness gives Sneasel a calm vigilance that feels controlled rather than anxious. Sneasel's presence does not dominate space. It fits into environments quietly, leaving minimal trace. Snow settles back into place, shadows return to stillness, and sound fades quickly after it passes. This subtle impact reinforces its identity as a Pokémon that moves without disruption. Rather than ending in flourish or sentiment, Sneasel's presence simply continues forward. It remains alert, composed, and balanced, moving through its environment with quiet intention, neither rushing nor lingering, content in awareness and control as the world around it remains calm and undisturbed. Tyranitar carries a presence that feels ancient, grounded, and immensely steady, like a mountain that has learned how to walk without disturbing the land beneath it. Everything about Tyranitar suggests permanence rather than urgency. It does not move quickly, and it does not need to. When Tyranitar takes a step, the world seems to acknowledge it, not through chaos or destruction, but through quiet recognition of weight and inevitability. This is a Pokémon whose power feels settled rather than explosive, as though it has already proven itself long ago and no longer needs to demonstrate anything. The body of Tyranitar is massive and angular, built from dense armor-like plating that resembles stone more than flesh. These plates interlock naturally, creating a form that feels carved rather than grown. The rough texture of its body suggests erosion over time, as though Tyranitar has endured countless storms without changing shape. This gives it an almost geological quality, making it feel less like a creature reacting to the present and more like a constant that simply exists alongside it. Despite its intimidating size, Tyranitar's posture is balanced and composed. It does not hunch or loom aggressively. Instead, it stands upright, shoulders squared, tail heavy but controlled. There is no tension in its stance, no sign of restlessness. Tyranitar does not pace or shift unnecessarily. It remains where it is with quiet confidence, fully aware of its surroundings, without needing to assert dominance. Tyranitar's eyes are sharp but calm, reflecting awareness rather than hostility. They do not glow with rage or narrow in threat. Instead, they observe steadily, processing movement and change without urgency. This calm gaze reinforces the sense that Tyranitar is rarely surprised. It understands its environment deeply and trusts its ability to respond when necessary. One of the most defining aspects of Tyranitar is the way it interacts with its environment. It does not adapt to surroundings in small ways. Instead, environments adapt around it. Mountains erode, landscapes shift, and time passes, yet Tyranitar remains. This relationship with the world feels passive rather than destructive. Tyranitar does not seek to reshape the land actively. Its presence alone is enough to leave a lasting impression. In Johto, Tyranitar feels like the embodiment of long-term consequence. While many Pokémon reflect growth, change, or balance, Tyranitar reflects endurance and inevitability. It represents something that arrives after long development and remains afterward without fading. This makes it feel less like a final evolution and more like a completed state, a form that no longer needs direction. Tyranitar's movements are deliberate and efficient. When it walks, each step is placed with care, distributing weight evenly. There is no stomping or reckless force. Even with its size, Tyranitar avoids unnecessary destruction, reinforcing the idea that its strength is controlled rather than chaotic. Watching Tyranitar move feels grounding, like observing something that understands gravity rather than fights it. In battle, Tyranitar's power is undeniable, yet its approach remains measured. It does not rush to overwhelm opponents with constant motion. Instead, it absorbs pressure, responds decisively, and maintains presence. Its attacks feel heavy and intentional, as though each one has been chosen, rather than unleashed impulsively. Tyranitar does not waste energy proving its strength. It simply applies it when needed. There is also a strong sense of patience tied to Tyranitar's identity. It evolves slowly, requiring time, effort, and endurance. This slow progression reinforces the idea that Tyranitar is not meant to be rushed. Its strength is earned through persistence, rather than sudden change. This long journey gives Tyranitar a sense of depth, as though it carries the weight of everything that came before it. Tyranitar's dark typing adds another layer to its presence. Darkness, in this context, does not represent chaos or fear, but inevitability and quiet pressure. Tyranitar does not hide in shadows. It stands openly, allowing darkness to exist as part of its nature rather than a tool it wields. This acceptance makes Tyranitar feel honest rather than threatening. Despite its fearsome reputation, Tyranitar does not feel cruel. It does not act out of malice or desire to dominate. Its behavior feels neutral, governed by instinct and balance rather than emotion. This emotional steadiness makes Tyranitar feel stable, like something that cannot be provoked easily or manipulated into rash action. Tyranitar's roar is deep and resonant, but it is rarely used. When it vocalizes, it does so with purpose rather than excess. The sound does not feel like a warning or a challenge. It feels like a declaration of presence, brief and controlled, reinforcing its authority without escalating conflict. The environments Tyranitar inhabits are often rugged and open. Mountains, rocky valleys, and wide expanses suit it best, offering space without confinement. These landscapes mirror Tyranitar's personality, vast and unhurried. It does not thrive in crowded or chaotic spaces. It prefers room to exist without interference. Symbolically, Tyranitar represents endurance beyond struggle. It shows that strength does not always arrive quickly, and that the most stable forms are often the result of long, quiet persistence. Tyranitar does not chase goals. It becomes them over time. There is also a sense of solitude tied to Tyranitar. It is not commonly seen in groups, and this solitude feels intentional rather than lonely. Tyranitar does not require constant interaction to feel complete. Its presence alone is sufficient. This independence reinforces its calm authority. When Tyranitar rests, it does not collapse or retreat. It remains upright or settles minimally, maintaining awareness even in stillness. Its breathing is slow and deep, steady rather than heavy. Rest does not weaken Tyranitar. It simply allows energy to remain conserved and balanced. The armor-like plates covering Tyranitar's body show no concern for aesthetics. They exist purely for function, shaped by necessity rather than beauty. Yet there is a rugged elegance in this design, one that comes from honesty rather than refinement. Tyranitar looks exactly like what it is, nothing more and nothing less. Tyranitar's presence often changes how others behave nearby. Movement slows, caution increases, and awareness sharpens. This effect is not caused by fear alone, but by respect. Tyranitar commands attention without demanding it, influencing its surroundings through presence rather than action. There is something deeply calming about imagining a Tyranitar standing quietly beneath an open sky. Wind moves around it, clouds drift overhead, and time passes without urgency. Tyranitar does not move, yet nothing feels stagnant. It simply remains, anchored and unbothered, a constant within a changing world. Rather than concluding with spectacle or sentiment, Tyranitar's presence settles into quiet permanence. It stands firm, balanced, and composed, not waiting for change and not resisting it, existing fully within its strength and stability as the world continues calmly around it. Crobat exists in a state of refined balance, a Pokemon that feels as though it has finally learned how to move without resistance. Where earlier forms relied on endurance and repetition, Crobat represents efficiency perfected through harmony. Its presence is light, controlled, and remarkably calm, like air flowing freely through open space. Nothing about Crobat feels strained or excessive. Every motion appears chosen, every adjustment subtle, as though it no longer needs to fight its own momentum. The most immediately striking feature of Crobat is its four wings, arranged in a way that seems unusual at first, yet makes perfect sense once observed in motion. These wings do not flap wildly or compete with one another. Instead, they move in coordinated patterns, distributing effort evenly across Crobat's body. This allows Crobat to fly for long periods without fatigue, gliding smoothly through caves, forests, and night skies with minimal energy loss. Watching Crobat fly feels fluid and calming, like watching a well-rehearsed motion repeated without error. Crobat's body is streamlined and lightweight, designed to reduce drag and maximize control. Unlike heavier flying Pokemon that must constantly correct their course, Crobat adjusts naturally, responding to changes in air pressure with barely noticeable shifts. This responsiveness gives Crobat an almost effortless presence in flight, as though it is not pushing through air, but being carried by it. There is a noticeable emotional shift when comparing Crobat to its earlier forms. Where Golbat carried constant motion, Crobat carries calm. It no longer feels driven by hunger or endurance alone. Instead, it feels settled, as though it has reached a state where movement and rest exist in equal balance. Crobat flies not because it must, but because it is comfortable doing so. Crobat's eyes are alert but relaxed, reflecting awareness without tension. They do not dart or widen in urgency. Instead, they track movement smoothly, processing information calmly. This steady gaze suggests a Pokemon that understands its environment deeply and trusts its ability to respond without haste. Crobat does not rush decisions. It has time. The evolution into Crobat is tied to trust and connection rather than raw strength. This origin is reflected clearly in Crobat's demeanor. It does not feel aggressive or territorial by default. It feels cooperative, aware of its surroundings, and respectful of space. Crobat moves alongside others easily, maintaining distance without isolation. In Johto's caves and night skies, Crobat feels perfectly placed. These environments are quiet, expansive, and shaped by echo and shadow rather than chaos. Crobat navigates them smoothly, using sound and air movement rather than sight alone. Darkness does not slow it down. It sharpens its awareness. Crobat's flight is remarkably silent. Despite its wingspan, it produces minimal sound, allowing it to move without disrupting its surroundings. This silence reinforces Crobat's calm presence. It does not announce itself or demand attention. It simply passes through space, leaving the environment unchanged behind it. In battle, Crobat favors precision and timing over prolonged engagement. Its movements are quick but controlled, striking only when necessary and repositioning immediately afterward. This approach reflects Crobat's broader philosophy, one that values efficiency and balance over dominance. It does not stay where conflict lingers. It resolves and moves on. Crobat's poison typing feels subdued rather than threatening. It does not radiate danger or decay. Instead, its poison is controlled, a tool rather than a defining trait. This restraint aligns with Crobat's overall identity, reinforcing the idea that power does not need constant expression to remain effective. There is a sense of freedom associated with Crobat that feels earned rather than chaotic. It is not freedom born from escape or rebellion, but from mastery. Crobat no longer struggles against its own limitations. It has learned how to move within them gracefully, turning effort into ease. When Crobat rests, it does so briefly and lightly. It may perch upside down or cling to a high surface, wings folding neatly around its body. Even in rest, it does not appear heavy or tense. Its body remains ready without rigidity, awareness present without strain. This balance between readiness and relaxation defines Crobat's calm presence. Crobat's interactions with others are smooth and unintrusive. It does not crowd or compete unnecessarily. It adjusts its position naturally, maintaining harmony within shared space. This social awareness makes Crobat feel emotionally intelligent, capable of coexistence without friction. Symbolically, Crobat represents growth through balance rather than accumulation. It shows that becoming stronger does not always mean adding more, but learning how to use what already exists more effectively. Its four wings do not represent excess. They represent distribution, effort shared evenly rather than concentrated. Crobat's movement through caves feels especially peaceful to imagine. Echoes soften as it passes, air currents adjust gently, and shadows shift without disturbance. There is no sudden motion, no abrupt change. Crobat fits into these spaces as though it has always belonged there. There is also a sense of trust in Crobat's behavior. It trusts its body, its awareness, and its environment. This trust removes hesitation, allowing movement to remain smooth and unforced. Crobat does not second-guess its actions. It acts calmly and continues forward. Crobat's presence often brings a subtle quiet to its surroundings. Movement slows slightly, attention sharpens, and unnecessary noise fades. This effect is not intentional. It is a natural result of Crobat's calm efficiency, influencing the environment simply by existing within it. Unlike many fast Pokémon that feel restless, Crobat feels complete. It does not seek improvement or escalation. It has reached a form that suits its role perfectly. This completeness gives Crobat a sense of peace that carries into everything it does. In Johto's broader themes of tradition, patience, and earned growth, Crobat stands as a quiet example of refinement. It is not the loudest or most imposing Pokémon, yet its presence lingers, remembered for how smoothly it moves through space rather than how forcefully it acts. When night stretches on and the world settles into quiet repetition, imagining a Crobat gliding steadily through open air feels grounding. Its wings move in balanced rhythm, its body light and controlled, its awareness steady. It does not rush toward anything, and nothing chases it. Crobat simply continues, moving cleanly through space without resistance, content in balance and clarity, existing exactly as it is meant to within the calm, unhurried flow of the Johto region. Lanturn carries a presence that feels expansive, steady, and quietly reassuring, like a lighthouse that has been standing for so long it no longer thinks about guiding others, it simply does. Where its earlier form glowed gently, Lanturn illuminates with confidence and calm, filling dark water with soft, far-reaching light. It does not rush through its environment or move with urgency. Instead, it drifts with intention, aware of the space it occupies and comfortable within it. Lanturn's body is larger and more rounded than Chincho's, built for endurance rather than agility. Its movements are slow and deliberate, guided by broad fins that push water aside smoothly without turbulence. Each motion feels economical, as though Lanturn has learned how to conserve energy over long periods rather than expend it quickly. Watching Lanturn swim gives the impression of something ancient and practiced, a being that understands how to exist for a very long time without strain. The glowing antenna that defines Lanturn is its most iconic feature. Unlike harsh artificial light, Lanturn's glow is warm and diffused, spreading outward gently rather than cutting sharply through darkness. This light does not flicker or pulse unpredictably. It remains steady, constant, and reliable, illuminating the water in wide arcs. The glow feels comforting rather than commanding, like a presence meant to reassure rather than alert. Lanturn's electricity is deeply integrated into its biology. Rather than generating sudden bursts of power, it produces energy steadily, storing and releasing it in controlled ways. This electrical balance allows Lanturn to maintain its glow for long periods without exhaustion. There is no sense of instability in its power. Electricity, water, and body function together seamlessly, creating harmony rather than tension. In the deep waters surrounding Johto, where sunlight cannot reach and pressure increases, Lanturn thrives. These environments are quiet, vast, and slow-moving, perfectly suited to its calm demeanor. Lanturn does not fight the darkness of the depths. It fills it gently, transforming empty space into something navigable and safe. Its light gives structure to an otherwise endless environment. Lanturn's eyes are calm and observant, reflecting awareness without alarm. They do not scan rapidly or show signs of stress. Instead, they move slowly, taking in the environment as a whole rather than focusing on individual threats. This broad awareness makes Lanturn feel composed and secure, a Pokémon that understands its surroundings deeply enough to remain unbothered by them. There is a notable sense of patience in Lanturn's behavior. It does not chase prey aggressively or flee at sudden movement. It waits, observes, and responds only when necessary. This restraint allows it to conserve energy and maintain stability in environments where movement is costly. Lanturn's patience feels learned rather than instinctive, as though it has adapted over time to the rhythms of the deep sea. Lanturn's light also serves a social function. Other Pokémon recognize its glow from great distances, using it as a point of reference in the dark. This visibility does not create conflict or competition. Instead, it fosters coexistence. Lanturn's presence makes navigation easier for others without demanding interaction. It provides guidance simply by being there. Despite its size, Lanturn does not dominate its surroundings. It moves carefully, mindful of space and depth. There is no sense of territorial aggression in its behavior. It does not guard its area forcefully or chase others away. Instead, it maintains a calm presence, allowing the environment to remain balanced. In battle, Lanturn's approach reflects its broader philosophy. It does not overwhelm opponents with speed or force. It endures, adapts, and responds steadily. Its attacks feel controlled and purposeful, never frantic. Lanturn relies on consistency rather than surprise, trusting its ability to remain present longer than most. The water around Lanturn often feels calmer in its presence. Light softens shadows, movement becomes more deliberate, and space feels more defined. This environmental effect is subtle but meaningful, reinforcing Lanturn's role as a stabilizing presence rather than a disruptive one. Lanturn's evolution from Chinchou represents growth through expansion rather than change in nature. Its philosophy remains the same, but its reach increases. Where Chinchou offered a small guiding light, Lanturn offers illumination across wide distances. This growth feels natural and earned, the result of time rather than force. Symbolically, Lanturn represents guidance without authority. It does not command attention or demand following. It simply exists as a steady point in darkness, allowing others to orient themselves if they choose. This quiet leadership feels comforting rather than imposing. There is also a sense of emotional warmth associated with Lanturn. Despite living in cold, dark waters, its presence feels welcoming rather than isolating. Its glow does not create distance, it reduces it. This emotional quality makes Lanturn feel nurturing in an understated way. Lanturn's resting behavior is calm and unguarded. It often hovers in place, fins moving gently to maintain position while its light continues to shine softly. There is no tension in its posture. It trusts its environment and its own strength enough to rest openly. The rhythm of Lanturn's movement and glow feels steady and predictable. This rhythm has a calming effect, encouraging stillness rather than alertness. Watching Lanturn drift slowly through dark water feels like watching time stretch and settle. Lanturn does not seek attention, yet it is difficult to ignore. Its presence naturally draws focus without demanding it. This balance between visibility and humility gives Lanturn a unique place among Johto Pokémon, one defined by quiet reliability rather than spectacle. In Johto's coastal waters and deep seas, Lanturn feels like a constant. Storms may pass above, currents may shift, and time may move forward. Yet Lanturn remains steady below the surface. Its light continues to glow, unchanged and dependable. Rather than concluding with sentiment or flourish, Lanturn's presence remains calm and ongoing. It drifts slowly through the depths, light steady, movement gentle, awareness relaxed. It does not rush forward or fade away. It simply continues, illuminating the dark water quietly and consistently, content in its role as a calm guide within the vast, unhurried seas of Johto.